Welcome to Run, Jump, Stomp, a podcast about games because we needed another. You can find the show notes for this episode as well as other content at runjumpstomp.com. This is episode 19 for June 17th, 2015. I'm Bill, your host, and today we're talking about E3 Day 2. Now, this episode is a special episode. I usually only put episodes out on Tuesdays. I'm going to put this one out on Wednesday because I want to discuss the things that I didn't get to talk about yesterday. Those two things are the Nintendo press conference and the Square Enix... Let me try that one again. The Nintendo press conference and the Square Enix press conference. As always, thanks for listening. Yesterday was the Nintendo press conference for E3, or not really press conference, more like the digital event, because they pre-record everything and then send it over, and then they talk about their games with the Treehouse, which in the past I think has really worked out for them, and I don't think that the format hurt them this year, but their announcements did. I'm going to go through the announcements that the things that they did talk about. I'll talk a little bit about what they didn't talk about, and then I'll say what I think about that. So the first thing that jumped out at me is that I did not see this coming, but there are going to be Bowser and Donkey Kong Skylanders. But if you turn the base of the Skylander, it switches over to an amiibo instead of being a Skylander, which is kind of confusing. But basically what I think is in the base, there's a piece of metal that is covering up one NFC chip. And when you switch it over to the other side, it covers up a different NFC chip. I found this was a big surprise. I wouldn't say that it's an amazing revelation or anything. It's just I did not expect Nintendo and Activision, who make Skylanders, to be collaborating on the plastic crap. I say plastic crap. My son's got a bunch of Skylanders. He's got a bunch of amiibo because he loves them. It doesn't appeal to me, but it definitely appeals to young gamers, and I understand why they're doing it. I'm surprised that they're collaborating on it. The next thing that I thought was really cool is Zelda Triforce Heroes. It is a multiplayer-focused Zelda game for the 3DS. Basically, it's 3 players, and there's what they call the totem mechanic, where one player can pick up another player, and then those two can be picked up by a third player to make a tower of links to access things that are higher up. Different characters, well, they're all the same character, but different players can choose what abilities and equipment they're going to have. The abilities come from the clothing, and the clothing, basically you get raw materials by salvaging loot, which then you can turn into clothing, and that clothing has some way to change how you interact with the world. So maybe you put on a certain suit and it makes it a higher percentage chance for you to get hearts and rupees. Another one maybe will make your arrows shoot a little bit faster, that kind of thing. The other thing is you don't have a giant inventory full of items to use. At the beginning of the dungeon, each player chooses which item they're going to have, and then you have to cooperate with the other people playing in order to get past all of the puzzles in the dungeon. It has online play as well as local play. The puzzles look really cool, and it's interesting how the 3-player mechanic can work to make a very intricate puzzles that require all 3 people. Now, I did see that they did mention at the Nintendo Treehouse that you will be able to play it single player if you want. I wonder if that means you move a guy and then you push a button to switch to another Link, kind of like in Zelda Four Swords Adventures. So basically, this is a lot like Zelda Four Sword Adventures, except there's only 3 of them, and you can play online as well as local. Other Zelda news that I found interesting was they also mentioned Hyrule Warriors was coming for 3DS. This was actually leaked a little bit ago. I think it was a week ago. I had it in the rundown for, I think, yesterday's episode, but I had to cut it because yesterday's episode was incredibly long. It's going to include all the characters from the Wii U version, which I haven't played Hyrule Warriors. I don't really like the Dynasty Warriors games. I'm not good at button mashers, so I don't usually play them, but I've heard that that's a lot of characters. And they're actually going to be adding even more from Zelda Wind Waker, which I think that's really cool. Now, after the Zelda stuff, then they announced Metroid Prime Fusion Force, which when they put that on the screen, I was like, yes, Metroid Prime, I am ready. And then they showed the game. It does not look like a Metroid game. Yeah, it's got a HUD, and the HUD is reminiscent of Metroid Prime. Yes, it's a first-person shooter. It's on the 3DS, but it's a multiplayer game, and from what I saw, it almost seemed like they would give you a mission, and you and the other 2 people on your team would have to, or maybe it was 4 people, the other people on your team would have to complete the mission. You would divvy up what weapons that you got. So maybe I'm going to take 3 rockets, and you take 2 mega rockets, and I take 3 healing packs, and the other guy takes 6 laser bombs or whatever. I don't know. That kind of thing. But you divvy up the stuff that you want to use, and then you have to go and do whatever it is that the mission tells you to do. That's not a Metroid game. A Metroid game is a game about exploration and going back and forth and seeing a place that you can get to later on in the game when you have a different piece of equipment, and then finding that piece of equipment and saying, oh man, I'll bet you I could use this to get to that one spot, and there'll be something really cool up there. Metroid is about exploration. This game does not look like it has any exploration at all, and it is not the Metroid game that we wanted. It also has Blast Ball. Yesterday I mentioned Blast Ball, which was that space soccer thing. Well, that's actually a sub-version of Metroid, and that's what a lot of people were wondering. We were wondering, boy, this, like, the interface looks like a Metroid game. I wonder if this has something to do with Metroid, and indeed it does. I won't go into Blast Ball. If you're curious about that, listen to the episode from the 16th of June. That's yesterday. I think that's episode 17, I believe. It's titled E3 Day 1. Oh, by the way, yesterday, for the Nintendo conference and the Square conference, that was day 1 of E3, even though they had all the other press conferences before. So even though I said that yesterday was day 1, it wasn't. So I'm really talking about day 2 of E3, but everybody else will call it day 1 because they're following the rules. All right, back to, that was a long tangent. I'm sorry about that. That's not the Metroid game we want. I guess there's even a petition to have it canceled, which that's just dumb. It still looks like a fun game. And yeah, it feels like they're slapping the Metroid title on there just to push it. And I feel like that kind of cheapens everything, but it still does look like a fun game. I'll check it out. I hope there's a demo. But it's not what we wanted. The next thing that they showed was Fire Emblem Fates, which I think is the North American release name of Fire Emblem If. It looked cool. Not anything new for us. I mean, everybody already knew about the new Fire Emblem game. They just changed the name of it for the States. Then they showed Shin Megami Cross Fire Emblem. The whole thing was in Japanese, which was bizarre to me. It's an American conference. You would think with the North American audience that they would have translated it into English, because I couldn't tell what was happening. It looked bizarre and crazy. But that's Shin Megami Crossfire Emblem. I don't really know what kind of game it's going to be. They announced the launch date of Yoshi's Woolly World. That's going to be on October. Sorry, something in my throat. That's going to be in October. Then they said Xenoblade Chronicles X, again, something else that we already knew about, but then they finally gave it a release date. That's December 4th. Now, Xenoblade Chronicles X is already out in Japan. They must have buckets of translation to do if it's not coming out till the 4th in North America. Or they're slotting it there just because they need a big tentpole Christmas release, and they don't have one because Zelda Wii U got, they say delayed, I say canceled. I'll talk about that in a minute. Then they showed Animal Crossing. Now, I was really hoping to get Animal Crossing for the Wii U. My son and wife and myself all like Animal Crossing. It's a very fun game. They showed Animal Crossing Happy Home Designers, which basically you are an interior decorator, and these animals will say, I like a house that's based on music, so you have to go through... Sorry, let me turn off my notifications. So then you have to go through and decorate their house and see how much they like it. Everything that they'd showed us up until this point made it seem like that's all there was. Then they said that you can also decorate outside of the house, and you get to pick their plots of land and stuff. So that seems kind of cool. I still don't think it's really what people are looking for from Animal Crossing. But then again, I also said, when I first saw Animal Crossing, I said, well, I'm not going to play that. That looks dumb. And then when I finally tried it, I had loads of fun with it. I poured lots of hours into Animal Crossing New Leaf on my 3DS. It's a fantastic game, and if you haven't played it, you should check it out. This new one, though, looks a little too, I don't know, singular. There's not enough to do. Maybe I'm wrong. I haven't tried it yet. We'll see after I try it. Then they showed Animal Crossing for the Wii U. And I got excited. I was like, all right, this is exactly what I wanted. Finally, we're going to be able to play it on the Wii U. And maybe it'll have some kind of interaction with the new Animal Crossing game for the 3DS. That's not happening. The game for the Wii U is called Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. And they're going to have Animal Crossing Amiibos. And it's a board game. It's basically Mario Party, but with Animal Crossing characters. Now, I don't understand why anybody would buy this instead of Mario Party. It didn't look interesting at all. It looked like somebody just threw it together and slapped another name on it. It was very, I won't say upsetting, but very off-putting. I was like, what is going on here? It's like they're just giving up. They showed Yokai Watch, which I don't know anything about, but in Japan, I guess it's a huge deal. It's a very Japanese title. I guess in Japan, it's a very cultural thing where people know about, they understand what yokai is, which is like some kind of ghost. But I'm just talking about what I've heard elsewhere. Yokai Watch, I guess, is a cartoon over there as well. Maybe they're bringing the cartoon here. It seems like it's going to fill the Pokemon slot for this year, which I'm fine with. We've had a new Pokemon game like every year for the past 2 or 3 years now. It'd be fine to get something different. That's cool. I don't know if it's going to do well, though, because nobody knows what it is here. Or maybe I'm just in the minority. The next thing they showed was a new Mario and Luigi game. That it was really weird. It's bringing together the Mario and Luigi game with the Paper Mario game. It's called Mario and Luigi Paper Jam. And basically it's an RPG where you have to interact with the fight system. So when a turtle shoots a shell at you, you have to dodge it and jump on top of it and bounce it back, but it still has turn-based combat. I like those games. I'll probably pick this up. It looks fun, but again, it's nothing new. Then they showed Mario Tennis for the Wii U. My initial thoughts were this all depends on the controls, but I just, like about an hour ago, saw somebody playing it on Nintendo Treehouse, and they were using Pro controllers. I was worried that it was just swinging a Wii controller around, and if that was the case, I'm not interested. I like tennis games. One of my favorite games, and the name of it, Virtua Tennis, for, I think it was the Dreamcast. I loved that game. I could be wrong about what system it was on, though. I'm not 100%. But Virtua Tennis, I absolutely loved playing that game. I think that Mario Tennis, without horrible motion controls, would be really great, and I'm looking forward to that. The last thing, I'm looking at my notes. Apparently, autocorrect changed Super Mario Maker to Super Martini Maker. That seems like a fun game, too. But Super Mario Maker, I'm already sold on this. If you watch the World Championships, it was awesome. You know, sprites for what they announced was, what new information that they announced was that if you scan in an amiibo, there's sprites to, basically there's a new mushroom called a mystery mushroom, and when you hit it, when you grab it, it turns you into a different costume, and the costume depends on what amiibo that you have tapped to your controller when you start playing. So and they showed Wii Fit Trainer. So they actually made an 8-bit sprite for Wii Fit Trainer, and if Mario grabs the mystery mushroom, he turns into Wii Fit Trainer. Now, the game still plays the same, it's just a cosmetic change, but I still think it's cool, and it's a nice way to include the amiibos. Speaking of amiibos, they also showed an 8-bit Mario amiibo that looks really, really cool. You can't see a picture of it because this is an audio podcast, but if you Google 8-bit amiibo, it looks really cool. Super Mario Maker comes out in September, and I'll definitely be buying that because Super Mario Maker, I wonder if they're ever going to make another 2D Mario game again. They've got everybody else to make them for them. It's going to be really cool. Imagine every day you come home, you sit down, oh great, I've got 1,000 new Mario levels to play. That's awesome. So, I think what we've seen from E3 this year is that Nintendo's strategy for 2015 is to wait until 2016. They said when they announced the NX that they would be talking about it in 2016. The very first thing that Reggie Fils-Aimé said was that we'll talk about the NX in 2016, and they're taking all of their big tentpole items and holding on to them and pushing them to the NX so that it can have a big launch. That's what I see happening. Now, the question is this the right thing for Nintendo to do? And I say it is, because the Wii U is, compared to the other consoles, is underpowered. Makes it really difficult for third parties who develop a game to look fantastic on the PS4 or Xbox One to port it to the Wii U, because the Wii U just can't handle what's being thrown at it. Now, the Wii U, having failed as bad as it has, and I still love that system. I play on it probably every other day. In fact, I just beat Splatoon last night. By the way, Splatoon, the last boss of Splatoon, awesome fight. Super fun. Probably took me 15 minutes to beat it, but that was after dying against it probably for an hour. It's a fantastic game. Definitely love Splatoon. I love what Nintendo does with first party stuff, but they've been abandoned by third party. And there's no way they can get the third parties back to the Wii U. There was one game announced from all of the other press conferences for Nintendo Wii U, and that one game that was announced was Just Dance 2016, which is on everything anyway. So Nintendo seems to have come to the point where they have no choice. They have to cut their losses and start over. And I'm fine with that because if you're a fan of Nintendo, then you need their system to sell well. Because if their system sells well, then third-party developers will put their games on it, and you won't have to buy multiple systems. That's what I want. I only want to buy one system. And I know that Nintendo is not going to be developing for other platforms. You're not going to see a Mario game on Xbox, at least not this console generation or next console generation. Maybe 2 or 3 console generations from now, but that's 20 years away? I don't think we're going to be seeing Nintendo games on other consoles for a minimum of 20 years. Now, if I'm wrong, well, you come back and let me know. That'd be great. Do you think Nintendo is making a mistake by cutting their losses and moving on to the NX? Let me know. You can email me at runjumpstomp@gmail.com, or you can give me a call at, I forgot the number. Whoops. I just messed everything up. You can also give me a call at 260-RUN-JUMP. That's 260-786-5867. Give me an email. Let me know if you disagree with me about Nintendo's strategy. All right, so after all that negativity, although I don't know if I was being negative, I think I'm positive that they're doing the right thing. You would probably think that I thought that Nintendo had the worst showing of E3. You would be wrong. Square Enix had what I would have to say might be the worst press conference I've ever seen in my life. First off, it opened up with some really terrible music. Now, music is subjective, and you might disagree with me. Maybe it was your favorite song. I don't know. I'd never heard it before, and it was really bad. They were showing Just Cause 3. I haven't played any of the Just Cause games, and what I saw from their demo of Just Cause 3 did not make me want to play them. It just looked like more of the same stuff. Overall, the Square press conference seemed pretty boring. And I think part of the problem was that they let well, first off, they didn't have enough information to warrant their own press conference. The biggest stuff that they showed at this E3 was Final Fantasy VII being remade, because that's something that people have been clamoring for years. And they didn't even reserve it for their own press conference. They showed it at the Sony press conference. I don't understand why they would do that. You've paid a bunch of money to have a press conference at E3, and then you give your biggest reveal to some other company? That just seems ridiculous. So I don't really see what they were doing with that. Tomb Raider, the same thing. Tomb Raider, they let Sony present. So I'm not really sure what their strategy was for having a press conference, but I'll go over a couple of things for the Square Enix press conference, and then that'll be it for this show. So I talked about Just Cause 3. Didn't look great. I don't really know what the game was, but they had some guy come out with this super creepy white mask. I'll bet you if you Google Square Enix E3 2015 and white mask, you'll get the picture that I'm talking about. It was the stuff of nightmares. So this guy comes out wearing a mask. They had to announce him a couple times because he couldn't hear them say his name, I think. And then he had to be guided out by people because he couldn't see where he was going. So then he comes out, and I can only imagine that the guy is inside this mask is shouting as loud as he can. You can barely hear him. and then it's being translated into English. That was crazy. And the reason I don't remember the name of the game is because I was so flabbergasted by what I was seeing on stage, and it wasn't worth looking up because almost everything that they talked about at the press conference was not going to be released in 2015. I think I mentioned this the other day when I talked about Fallout. Fallout 4 was announced last week, and that game will be out this year in November. The guy in charge of that, I forget his name, but he said something that I thought was really, really important. People are announcing their games way too early. They announce them. They say, it's going to be out on this day. Then they can't make the date, so they change it. And all that does is upset the players. If you just don't announce the game, just wait. Just wait. That's all that they have to do. They just have to relax and say, you know what? We've got stuff going on. We'll let you know when we're a little bit more ready. And trust me, it's going to be worth the wait. Instead, Final Fantasy VII being remade, everybody went nuts. Guess what? They didn't even give a date. They just said, we're starting development on it. Starting development, games of this graphical quality take an insane amount of time to make. Why announce it now if for no other reason than they're trying to manipulate the stock market? I have no idea. I can't imagine, and I don't pretend to know anything about economics, but I cannot imagine why they would announce Final Fantasy VII being remade when they're nowhere near it being done. The next big thing that they announced, and this was really the only thing that anybody really seemed to care about, was Kingdom Hearts. Pretty much their press conference was silent. Like, you could hear crickets, it felt like. The crowd was only applauding out of a courtesy, it seemed like. Except for when they brought Kingdom Hearts out. Now, first, they said, all right, Kingdom Hearts, and you could feel the crowd get excited. And then they showed Kingdom Hearts Unchained, which is a mobile game that looks absolutely terrible. I'm sure it's either going to be free with loads of in-app purchases, or it's going to cost way too much for what it is. When they finished that presentation, the crowd was silent. And then it was probably like 5 seconds of silence. And then like the crowd started to clap really quietly, like, I guess they're done. Should we clap now? I think we should clap now. Let's clap now. And then they all started clapping. It was eerie how unhappy the crowd was. I am surprised that people were not booing. Then the guy mentions, all right, Kingdom Hearts 3 was announced, and that's when people started cheering. Again, though, the game is pretty far out. They said currently in development. So that's no information. It seems like Square's just announcing their stuff too soon. And I think that they would have probably just been better off announcing Tomb Raider. And I guess Just Cause is coming kind of soon. I think that was 2016 as well. I think they would have just been better off not saying anything at this E3. It seems like they wasted a lot of money with very little return on their investment. It's not like people can go out and pre-order these games right now. Maybe they can for Tomb Raider, which, by the way, Square Enix, they are killing it with Tomb Raider. That I saw a demo during the PS4 press conference. First off, the graphics are absolutely amazing. And then during the Square Enix press conference, they showed like a behind the scenes kind of thing on how they made the game. And so like Laura is walking through the snow, and the longer that she's in the snow, the more of it accumulates on her. I thought that looked really cool. They showed some really zoomed in stuff to show how great she looks and stuff. I try not to be fooled by this is what our game's going to look like, because it never looks like it does. Like, there's always the E3 build, and then there's the build that you buy, and it never looks as good. But man, the sequence of Laura going like she was walking through the snow and doing like an ice climbing thing. It looked fantastic. It looked fun. It looked frantic, and I like that when I played the last Tomb Raider game, that those moments where you're just reacting to something. Like you're running along and something is falling and you have to dodge. And somehow they make it so that even though a lot of it feels scripted, especially when you're sitting back and looking at it afterwards, it feels scripted. But when you're in the moment, you feel like you are making this character survive. You feel like it's something that you're doing, and you feel like a badass. Because that's what Lara is. She's a badass. Lara Croft, I never played the original Tomb Raider games because I didn't have a PS1. Well, I had a PS1, but I never had a PS2. I never played those Tomb Raider games because that wasn't the style of game I was interested in at the time. But when the new one came out, it really grabbed me, and it's a fantastic game. And if you haven't played it, I guarantee you can get it super cheap on Steam right now. You should run out and buy it as soon as you can because it's awesome. And the new one looks even better. But that's all that Square Enix had. Everything else was so far out in advance that it was basically just showing, hey, look, here's a cinematic that we made that probably has nothing to do with the game right now. I think that they wasted their money. I think it was boring. So, overall, a summary of today, or yesterday. Whoops, my computer. I talked for so long, my computer went dead. Hold on. All right, so far, my summary for today is Nintendo, they're waiting for next year. And next year, I think they're going to kill it. Square should have waited until next year. But overall, of the E3 conferences that I saw, most of them were really good. I would say EA and Square had the worst conferences. Nintendo, also not very good, but I understand why. And everybody else did amazing. Like Xbox did great. Sony, fantastic. Ubisoft, great. Bethesda, way up there. Great stuff. This has been one of the best E3s ever. Oh, and don't forget about the Nintendo World Championships, which was the absolute perfect way to kick off E3. Now, will there be an episode tomorrow? I don't know. I don't know what else is going to be announced at E3. If there's something huge, then maybe I'll post a new episode tomorrow. If not, I'll probably talk about anything else from E3 next week. So this was my E3 special for this week, even though I talked about some of it last episode as well. As always, if you want to be part of the conversation, you, pardon me, can get a hold of me at runjumpstomp@gmail.com, or you can call in 260-RUN-JUMP. That's 260-786-5867. You can also get a hold of me on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube at RunJumpStomp. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week.